Welcome to Brunch with Brooke and Bryn. I am Brooke.
I'm Bryn.
And we are so stoked to start this adventure with y'all.
We originally were like, maybe we should actually eat brunch on the show because it's Brunch with Brooke and Bryn. So that makes sense, right? But we were like, that's either ASMR or misophonia. So
no go.
We'll just avoid that. But we like the name brunch because breakfast, you tend to speed through it. Like, you're just trying to get on with your day. Lunch, like middle of the workday. And then dinner can often be like too formal. But then brunch, like, if I hear that I'm going to a brunch, I know it's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
You're going to have good food. You're going to have sweet, savory. You can pour chocolate on your pancake and call it a meal. Like, that's dessert, but it's a meal today.
Mm-hmm. Or you could also put applesauce on your pancakes, which, from what I've heard,
Brooke does that. It's weird.
Not many other people do it. So if you do it, let's be friends. If not, you can judge me like other people. And that's okay, too.
It's
My
okay
husband
to
thinks
judge.
it's weird, so. and true, though, like, when I think of a brunch, it's very much, oh, I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go chat with my friends. I'm going to catch up. There's no pressure. You just show up. You have a good time. You eat yummy food. And brunch food is really, really good.
Yeah.
For some reason, right? Just like that magical component of, you can get the sweet, you can get the savory. And I feel like a lot of that is very symbolic of life, because life, you get the sweet and the savory.
Yeah.
The highs, the lows, the twists and turns. And we wanted to lean into that for this podcast.
Yeah, that's something we really want to focus on in this podcast. Our kind of goal is to give people hope and a home on the human journey. And the human journey, I read a lot of self-help books, and a lot of them will promise, like, if you do this, then you'll finally be happy. Like, and you read them and you're like, I'm finally going to figure out my life once I read this book. But, like, that's not the real human journey. There's always going to be good and bad. There's always going to be happy and sad. And it's about going through that together rather than trying to always fantasize that you're going to get to a happy, perfect point.
Yeah, because life isn't like that. And so often I even catch myself doing this. I get caught up in the idea of, oh, once I reach this point in my life, once I accomplish this, once I have this sense of completeness, or, oh yeah, I made it. Once I reach that place, okay, all my problems will be solved. I'll be okay. And life isn't necessarily like that, because life is messy. Like, there are so many different pieces to it. And as people, we're complex.
Right.
And so what we're hoping to do with giving hope and a home through your human journey and our human journey is just to kind of lean into the complexity of it, as well as the connection of, we're all figuring things out together. We're all growing, and that's okay. And sometimes it's even beautiful.
I love that. We want this to be we want it to be comfortable. We want it to be fun, and a place that you can feel validated, and we're just hanging out. Yeah. We're just two good friends.
Yeah. We want to have fun together with it. Yeah. And we'll get more into that, right? The reasons behind how the podcast came to be, and the hopes and the dreams, and then our stories, like Brooke's pieces, Bryn's pieces,
and how they fit together.
Yeah.
Our vision for this podcast is we want to talk. Well, Brooke is training to be a therapist right now. Wahoo.
Yay.
So she'll talk about that more. But we want to talk about the complexity of life, as well as we want to talk about relationships, a lot about how to live a good life. And a lot of this is, a lot of science and studies and research. And a lot of it is also just our personal philosophy.
Yeah. And to add to that, if I may.
Yeah.
Because we do want to dive into a lot of the, relationship pieces, and also how to live an intentional, engaged life. And a lot of that, I think, pulls from positive psychology pieces, also just learning about yourself as a person, as an individual. And recognizing that, yeah, there are some things people go through that are pretty normal, and we want to validate that and also hold space for people on this podcast, because there are different experiences. And we both believe that it's important to be able to respect, honor, and tolerate those differences. I feel like tolerate might have different definitions for it, but when I think of tolerate, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna lean into respect and hold space for other people's different experiences or beliefs or thoughts on things or passions, right? Because there are different things we can learn from each other, and we want to be able to have fun being ourselves, to be authentic, and hopefully as we go and as we talk about things, just to be able to create a dialogue that's helpful for anyone who does listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And true, I am studying to be a marriage and family therapist, and some of those pieces will come up as we go, and I'll share a little bit more later in this episode about that. So sometimes I will throw out research or things that I've learned about in grad school or on my own time through my own experiences. And we both recognize that people can have different experiences, and that's okay.
Yeah. And so everything we say, I think, should be taken with a grain of salt. There's always complexity to every statement, right? So go through the podcast acknowledging that, I guess. So should we introduce ourselves?
Yes.
When I listen to a lot of podcasts, and when I listen to them and I'm like, I know nothing about this person, it makes it hard to connect with them. So I really wanted to introduce ourselves. Do you want to talk about, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. A little bit about me. So Bryn and I met in college, and we'll share our story there. But Brooke, prior to college, I grew up moving around the U.S. a lot. And I know I've talked about this with you a couple times. I was born in Utah, but when I was a baby, my family moved. So I've lived in different places like Indiana, Missouri, Alabama, Colorado, Hawaii. I'm trying to think if there's any other. I think those are it. Those are it, as I just listed all those places.
Just a few.
Yeah, and I feel so grateful, because I would not be the Brooke who's now here today if I had not had moved around, because I learned a lot from it. And yeah, moving is hard. And for anybody who has moved, whether that's to a different school or different city or a different state or even a different country, that's hard, because change is really uncomfortable. I feel it. I feel it right now in grad school. It's hard to be uncomfortable. And I really like the saying, there's no growth in the comfort zone. There should always be safety. Going back to it, I moved around a lot, and it was always just my family. I have 4 younger brothers, so only girl, which crazy.
And her brothers are wild.
Yes.
Like they're a handful.
Yes. And if they're listening, or if people in my family or people who know my family are listening, I love you very much. And it's the and piece. And my brothers can be a little wild. So.
They are. But it makes it really fun, too. You have a fun family.
Yes, I do. I'm never bored. And I have loved being the oldest and watching my siblings grow. Like, that's been really cool. I've loved that so much. So I did a lot of sports. I did volleyball, softball, swim team. I always loved being active and outside, and there's always just been this love of learning and thing. And young Brooke was very much excited to experience things, to adventure, to learn. I'm grateful for the experiences that I did have growing up, and that's just a little bit about me. Yeah, what about you, Bryn?
I'm from Utah. I have a great family. I have an older sister and 3 younger brothers. In high school, I ran cross country, and I did track, and I did like youth and student government, and loved learning in high school, still do. And then when it was time for college, I was just like, I was so ready to go and be independent and do my own thing. And freshman year was just like one of the best years of my life. It was so fun. And that is where I met Brooke.
Yes. The lore, people. The lore's about to drop. Is that what the cool kids say nowadays? I don't know. I could be outdated.
Yeah, we were roommates. Like, there were 6 girls in our apartment.
And they were roommates.
and we were like the roommates. We were together, and so we met. And when I first met Brooke, it was a little overwhelming. Brooke is she's the most genuine, loving, empathetic human being, and it's so much so that I think sometimes people are like, is this real? It's totally real. So that's why when I first met her, I was a little overwhelmed. I was like, what is this? Like, are people really like this?
What's wrong
Who's
with
this
her?
person I'm stuck with?
I do not consent.
Well, and you would have just these moments where suddenly you'd get really deep, just all of a sudden, and I'd be like, where'd this come from? Like, I just met you, and we're having this really deep conversation all of a sudden. I was just not prepared for that. But that's one of the great things about you. So
thank you. And Bryn just there was always a sense of maturity, depth, and wit about you, and it was really fun getting to know you. And to this day, 6 years into almost 6 years into our friendship, come August, we've seen a lot. Individually and also from each other.
Yeah.
And what you've experienced.
It's been a long 6 years.
Yeah.
It's been a lifetime, let me tell you.
Yeah. So diabetes. That was a big part of our story freshman year and my own pieces. So I had finished my first semester of college, and there were some weird things I had been noticing, like going to the bathroom multiple times at night.
Well, yeah, because we hadn't known Brooke for super long, so we noticed these kind of weird things with her where it's like she would have to go to the bathroom all the time, but she also drank a ton of water, and we were like, Brooke, you don't need that much water.
And I'm like, no, I do. I'm thirsty. My mouth is parched.
And she'd always be like,
so dry.
Water's so refreshing though.
Which it is.
And I was kind of just like, Brooke, like, that's way more water than any human needs, and it makes you have to pee all the time. And I remember one time she was like, yeah, normally I get up to go to the bathroom like 5 times a night. And I'm like, really? Like, we slept in the same room, but I had never noticed.
Stealthy.
Yeah.
That's how you knew I was a good roommate.
I do appreciate that. But then Brooke would also just like, she'd get like a loaf of bread, and she would have just eaten dinner, and she would just like be studying, just eat an entire like loaf of bread. And we're like, how does she do that? Like, she just eats so much, which maybe that's what her body needs, but it doesn't, like, it seems like an unusual amount of food. And then we found out why.
Yeah. Dun dun dun. It was really interesting because I had noticed my body was doing weird stuff, and it didn't take, like, I knew something was wrong. I could feel that, but I didn't go get it checked out. I should have earlier. Eventually, though, I did have a doctor's appointment. I was doing a physical, and I brought this up to the doctor I was seeing, and she just kind of looked at me. I remember she tilted her head, and she said, okay, interesting. We're going to go ahead and take a urine sample, and we're going to test your blood to see what's going on. And it was a quick test because the symptoms I had given was very, very on the checklist for type 1 diabetes. And there's a difference. Like, you have type 1 diabetes, you have type 2 diabetes, you have gestational diabetes. Type 1 is the one that is the one that your pancreas stops creating insulin, and you're not able to really function or live in a healthy way. Eventually, somebody who has type 1 diabetes, if they don't get insulin back into their body, they will die, because your body needs the hormone insulin to process and break down all of the food that you eat, like the carbs, proteins and fats don't impact your sugar levels as much, but carbohydrates really do. So breads, fruits, pasta, popcorn, like a ton of food that we eat, at least here in the US, just has a lot of carbs in it. And that's pretty hard for somebody to manage when they don't have insulin in their body. And for me, it was, I was going to the bathroom multiple times a night. Bryn counted 5. And my body hurt all the time. Like, it was so sore, very stiff. My muscles ached. Even my bones just hurt. And I was constantly feeling so dehydrated. Like, my mouth would be parched. I would get really cranky. I felt tired.
I don't remember you being cranky.
Well,
I think I remember one time. That was the time that your car broke down. But like, that was like the only time I remember you being cranky. So I didn't notice it. So even if you felt cranky, you didn't like give it to us.
That's good. I'm glad. Ooh, that's okay. And then security resolved. So
no.
Yeah. And then I just thought it was part of the normal college experience because you're doing a lot of things. You're meeting a lot of people. You're up late studying or having game nights, right? And I just thought part of being a freshman in college was being exhausted all the time. So that's what I attributed it to. But then the doctor, once she ran the test, saw that my sugar levels were abnormal. It was really bad. So typically healthy people like you, Bryn, you'll fall anywhere between 70 to 150 for your blood sugar range with how much glucose is in your bloodstream and all of that. So on average, somebody would be like 110, give or take. And people who are hypoglycemic, a lot of times they'll be lower, like 80, 70. For me, I was all the way in the 600s. Whew.
That's really high.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. I had lemonade the night before, and I had just recently had my second cataract eye surgery because I also had cataracts at 18. What the heck? And
she had 2 surgeries and then found out she had diabetes in the same month.
Wow.
It was rough. She passed all of her classes.
Somehow. Oh my gosh. I still look back at that and I have no idea how that happened. Hard work. So from that moment, the doctor said, this is actually really, really bad. 600 is not normal. And my mom and I looked at each other and we were like, what's happening? And the lady specifically said, you have type 1 diabetes. You need to get to the hospital right now. And that way I could get the psychoeducation around diabetes, how to take care of myself, how to do the whole insulin thing. And it's a lot. Like, it's a whole other world and not many people see it because those of us with type 1 diabetes, or as I call my people, my diatribe or my dia buddies, it's kind of invisible because it's not like we have a prosthetic. It's not like we're in a wheelchair. It's not like, and all disabilities are hard. One isn't harder than the other. We just have different experiences.
Yeah.
A lot of the feelings can be similar and we can have empathy for each other. For me, it was, I have to figure out how to inject myself with insulin using pens and vials and syringes, and my eyes were healing from cataract surgery. So at least I could see better because when you have cataracts, it's like a dirty windshield and it's terrible. And my sight was doing really well. So that was a huge blessing that I was grateful for. And even still, I had to learn this really steep learning curve. And I was expected to go back to living my normal life. And I just felt so overwhelmed, angry. I was grieving. I was sad. And when I had finished my hospital stay, I remember how amazing it was to see so many people I cared about reach out, and Bryn was one of those people. And she organized our roommates and some friends to come visit me in the hospital, and she, even as I was sitting on my bed just kind of depressed and sad and all the feelings in my feels, you came, you brought your boyfriend, who's now your husband, Logan, and you played card games with me, and it was so kind and humanizing And I just felt like I had a really true friend who was there willing to stand by my side and just make me feel loved. And probably going to tear up a little bit. That's okay. I remember going back to my dorm, and a bunch of people that we knew had put hearts on my door with messages and inspiration, just of, hey, you can do hard things and we're all rooting for you, and this sucks. And we believe in you. And I just remember breaking down and crying. And later that night, I think I also had a bit of a cry. And you were there in the room with me, and you just came over and put your arms around me and held me. And that was the sweetest thing. And it meant so much. So it was just a huge tender mercy to have you as my roommate and as my friend. And I just, since that year, always considered you a sister and one of my besties. So Bryn's very important to me, and I respect and just adore her. So
it was definitely an experience that, I mean, obviously it's hard, and type 1 diabetes you have to live with for the rest of your life. Like, yeah, it's
no cure.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, and I'm grateful we could have that experience together, though. Like, if it was gonna happen, I'm glad it happened with us together. I think it was a big point in our friendship.
Well, I guess moving forward from freshman year.
Yeah. What
did we do after that? I graduated from college.
Can I get another Wahoo?
Wahoo! It's possible. One caveat, I recognize that there are other ways people can learn and develop skills, and you don't necessarily need a college degree to do great things. And for me, I majored in psychology, I minored in family life, and I did the honors program. And learned a lot. There are a lot of hard moments. And I'm grateful I kept going with it. And I wouldn't be the same person I am if I hadn't have done what I chose to do and pursue in my undergrad years. So I moved on with my bachelor's, and I am now attending a marriage and family therapy program. And I love it. It's hard sometimes. It is stressful. And I love it. It's been really, really good. And
it's cool to hear about what you learn. Like, it's so applicable to life and so applicable to, obviously, therapy.
That's nice to know. So, since our freshman year, I also got married to my partner, Sammy. And we met doing ballroom back in high school. And he was always just this fun, nice, kind guy that was really easy to talk to. And I never thought we'd actually get together and get married. And we're married, and we hit our 2-year anniversary tomorrow, which is kind of exciting. So
crazy.
Yeah, wild stuff. What have you done, Bryn, since freshman year?
Well, I also majored in psychology. I love psychology, and just I'm always thinking about how people think. I think it's very fascinating and so applicable to life. I sometimes call it my life degree, because I'm like, even if I like never used psychology like in a job, I would do the degree again because it's so useful for just everyday life. I also got married.
Can I get a wahoo?
Wahoo! Woo! And that's been just the best. I love being married because I love my husband. And it's been great to build a life together, and yeah, it's just so fulfilling. And even though there's been a lot of other hard things, being married has always consistently been just so good. My sophomore year of college, COVID started. Boom, boom, boom. It was rough going to college during COVID.
I cannot imagine.
Well, when it first started, it was actually kind of nice because, like, everything got canceled. Like, people canceled finals. Like, we didn't have to go to class. Like,
freedom. Yeah.
It was like, sometimes like, can we just do, like, that part again, but without the disease? Can we just cancel everything? And
no
like,
pressure.
Everyone works from home. And
yeah.
Yeah, but going to college during COVID was hard because my college moved. It was kind of like hybrid, like it was half online, half not. But what it turned into is mostly just being at home and just sitting a lot and not moving a lot, not a lot of social activity.
Sounds so draining.
Yeah, it was.
I say that and I'm like, oh wait, I experienced that too. And I'm like,
You're like, oh, I did that.
I was drained.
And I had been having mental health problems before that. And I was kind of getting a handle on them, but then COVID happened. And like, I lost my job because of COVID. And then I was suddenly just at home all the time and I couldn't find another job. And also, like, I was a college student, so most of the college jobs are like in person. Like, just a lot of them were canceled. They didn't have those jobs anymore. So that was rough. And so I just didn't have a lot to do except schoolwork and sitting, and my body like kind of broke down a lot during that time, and I'm still recovering from it. It was rough. COVID was rough. And my mental health got way worse during that time. It was already bad and it got way worse. And I'm not going to go a ton into that today, but I had some pretty severe depression and suicidal thoughts, and anyway, a lot of stuff like that. But like, I learned a lot from those experiences of how I hadn't been taking care of myself, because before, everything just came. Like, I didn't need to take care of my mental health. I didn't need to take care of my physical health, because that's just something that was built into my life, especially in high school. But going to college, I didn't have those much, and then COVID happened, and I learned a lot about balance from that. And I've slowly been getting better the past few years, and I feel like I'm at a pretty good place. I still have good days and bad days, and I never have consistently as good days as I used to. But I'm very grateful for my mental illness. I'm grateful for my darkness because of the greater light it's brought me to.
That's beautiful.
And
I
I'm grateful for how it's taught me to be empathetic and taught me to see the complexity. Like, now I realize there's so much complexity in life. It's not all this works for everyone. Everyone is different. Everyone needs different things. There's so many different circumstances. And
absolutely.
I also realized during this time that I had been having mental illness since childhood, but no one in my family recognized it till I was a teenager, but then it got worse in college. And so I had a lot to unpack from all of my life.
Yeah.
And working through a lot of trauma, and I had a lot to unpack. Eventually, I was depressed, directionless, and unemployed, and that is a great way to get into poetry.
That's a really nice segue there. And also just like the oomph behind that too. Yeah, that's a lot.
If this is what you have, poetry will happen. And I mean, it's true. Like, a lot of the time I see my poetry as my pain on paper. It's like a way that I express and examine everything that happened to me and the complexity. And I mean, I've always enjoyed writing. So originally I was just going to write prose. Like, I started this, I guess it was kind of a blog. Now it's mostly just like a social media, where I started I was going to write prose, just like kind of these essays about life. But then everything I was writing just turned into poetry. And I had been really interested in poetry for a while. So I started studying it more and studying some of the great poets. And my poetry now is a lot about complexity and divine love and finding God, and how, I don't know, seeing God in like different ways and the vastness of God. I write a lot about God, if you can't tell. Yeah, I also like writing kind of journal poetry, stuff about nature. But the goal of my poetry is to help people be not just religious, but also spiritual, and I mean, even if you aren't religious, to have that spirituality. Or I just think that a lot of people have a lot of trauma from religion.
Yeah.
Which I think I had some of that, but I also see a lot of the good in my religion, which is the complexity part, right? It's like there's hard things and bad things, but there's also so many good things that make it worth it. As I was doing this more, I was like, I would like to do more of this, which is how I got the idea for this podcast. I actually thought of the idea for a podcast like a year ago, and then for so long I was like, Brooke would be the perfect podcast host. And there were so many hikes that we went on that I was like, I should just mention this to Brooke and like see if we want to do something. And I never did. And I'm glad I didn't do it then, because I think our timing was better now. But it was only like 3 weeks ago. I was just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to text Brooke. I said,
full send. Yes.
Brooke, maybe I'm crazy, but I have this wild idea that we should start a podcast.
It was a really fun text to receive from Bryn, not gonna lie. And I loved just seeing your excitement about it. It meant something to you.
And I think it was the next day we talked on the phone for 3.5 hours.
She's staring deeply into my eyes because she did not like it. Truthfully, we both, I mean, like, not that we didn't like each other or talking with each other. And 3 hours over the phone just felt like a lot.
It was fun. Like, it was a good conversation.
Yeah.
But then at the end of it, we were like, let's not do this again.
Yeah. Literally 3 weeks ago, Bryn came to me with this idea, and
now we're here. It's kind of crazy. It's wild. Pretty surreal.
Yeah. We have a vision for the podcast that we hope resonates with you on some level, right? Like, to give hope and a home to people on the human journey, and just have that, again, that connection,
and to teach or like work with people on becoming complete rather than perfect, just to like live a good life, like how to live a life that's fulfilling, and focusing less on happiness and more on peace and on living your values. A caveat with Brooke being a therapist, like, this is our opinion and like some research, but it's like, if you need to see a therapist, like, you should go see a therapist.
Highly recommend. It works. I am Brooke the person, and I do have that exposure to the world of therapy, and I will bring that because that's part of who I am and the career I'm planning to go into. And I'm not.
She's not your therapist.
Yeah, that's a good way.
So go see your therapist.
Use BetterHelp. Go ask for referrals from sources you trust wherever you live, and
we're not sponsored by BetterHelp.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
But we could be.
So just with that piece too, we are two people who are seeking to have interesting conversations just about life, relationships, and the human journey, and we want to invite you into our little world of Brunch with Brooke and Bryn, and hopefully it is entertaining, it's helpful in some way, it's hopeful. Like, we would like to be able to create a space that you feel seen, like you can listen to us and just get a little bit of an uplift in your day. Yeah. Have it make somewhat of a difference for you.
We want it to be a very wholesome, uplifting space. Yeah. Like a podcast that like makes your day better, you know? Yeah. Along with that, we want to mention we are religious, if you couldn't tell. We are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so that does inform our viewpoint, obviously, and some of our life philosophies. And we will mention religion sometimes, but when we do it, we're going to try and be inclusive of other religions and spiritualities. So I'm really hoping that if you're not religious, or if you have a different religion or spirituality, that you can still listen to this. I think if you listen with just like an open mind, that you can figure out how to apply it to you or how it can fit in your worldview. So,
or if it doesn't fit, for you. Like, we can hold space
Yeah.
with that.
Then you can reject that.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
And
Love
it's
that.
interesting too, because like one of my brothers left, and he is in a different faith, and he's very happy in doing his thing.
Yeah.
And I really respect his choices,
Mhm.
and I love that he's happy and in
Yeah.
a very good place with his faith and spirituality. And I know other people in my life who are part of different religions or are atheist, and it's again, like, people have different experiences and different beliefs, and that's okay. And I hope that y'all know that we do care about being authentic to ourselves. That is important.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the idea of values, there are certain things that do inform our worldview and how we approach stuff. And also, we value being inclusive, compassionate, and respecting that people have different values.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Also, podcasting costs money. Who knew? We knew that.
Crazy. I just showed up. Actually, Bryn has done a lot of work, and I am so grateful for her and taking the lead. And yes, podcasting,
it costs money.
Costs money.
So we do have a Patreon, and we're also gonna have a Venmo. Patreon, if you haven't used it before, you can essentially like subscribe to get bonus content from a show. And I have a lot of ideas for bonus content, and I want it to focus on actually being applicable, a lot of it. So it's like, we talked about this thing in our show, and here's like this thing that actually helps you apply what we talked about. And I think we'll do some bonus content on there, like question answer type things. And it's just, if you like a show, it's a space that you can get more. And if you love the show but aren't really interested in the subscription or Patreon, then we're also going to have a Venmo if you're interested in helping us out. So, but if not, then don't. And then we would love to hear from you guys, things you like about this show, things that you think we could improve on, topics you think we should cover, questions you have for us. So you can contact us through our email, or you can DM us on Instagram, and we'll link those in the show notes. Yeah, this is our first episode.
We did it. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Our plan is to release an episode every 2 weeks. On Tuesday is our release date. So see you next Tuesday.
Yeah. Adios. Take care.